Hey everybody, welcome to episode 76 technically of Tactical Crouch, but this is your week 2 preview episode of the Overwatch League 2020 season. I'm KickedTripod, joined of course by Yiska and Volamel. We've only got 4 matches this week, so it should be really interesting to kind of sit down and preview some of these matches. We're seeing 4 new teams though this weekend, which is going to be, I think, a ton of fun. But before we get started and jump into it, our show is supported by our patrons and our subs at patreon.com/tacticalcrouch or at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. If you like the show, consider signing up on either or both. Get some cool perks. We've got some Tactical Crouch emotes. We've got some game nights. Lots of cool things going on. Definitely, support your favorite content. If it's not us and you listen to other people that you really enjoy, go support them. Do it. We record Mondays and Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I won't highlight this every week, but as we switch to this new schedule, I want to make sure that we keep hammered in there. So Mondays and Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Mondays being the recap of the previous week's games. Wednesdays being the preview of the upcoming week's games. So that's what this episode is. It's our second one. And other than that, find the show everywhere. Just search for Tactical Crouch. Really easy. Really easy stuff, guys. Whew. With that being said, Joe, Yiska, you've had a couple days to digest the game. That recap episode's kind of a fast turnaround. Still feeling good. Have any of your opinions changed on the games that we saw on the weekend since getting a little bit more time to kind of sit on them, watch them?
I don't think so. I mean, games in particular or any
players,
specific
game specific?
Oh, I haven't even had a chance to sit there and really sink my teeth into. I was either probably going to do that today or tomorrow, but yeah, I haven't really gone back and really tried to fine tooth any of the games. JMX sucks. No disc golf, please. I don't know. I'll just kind of re-echo some stuff.
Yeah. I think that was the only thing that really kind of, it didn't really change my mind, but it kind of confirms, I think, what I didn't totally see is Who Are You and Hotba had some very lucky plays against the London Spitfire that they get a lot of credit for that were just kind of nuts. Like Hotba's Diva ult on Junkertown C, not his last one, his second to the last one, clipped a Maywall so it would go into the Maywall triangle, but the Maywall wasn't even up yet when he tossed it, so you can't even say it was intentional or anything like that. It was just like pure luck. Just like some weird stuff like that where I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, they still played well and whatever, and obviously they're on NYXL and they're gonna do well as a team, and it's not all about that. But I was like, I immediately walked away going, oh, Hotba's ults weren't. I mean, yes, they were as impactful as they seemed, but maybe not as intentional as they were. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. But
I mean, I think there are some spots on some maps where it is kind of like some Bomberman stuff where it's like you put it here, there's going to be kills if you're not, if a cooldown's down or if a shield isn't there, there's no cover, you're going to die if somebody can't save you. But I think people overanalyze that stuff in particular. That's one of those anime things where it's no, he knew that everybody's cooldown was down and the shield was at 400 health. And if he throws it here, the trajectory and the brilliant mind, the trigonometry is not flashing through their minds. They're just I think if I throw it here, that's a good spot. So I'm going to wing it. Oh, I got some kills. Sweet.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I clipped the wall. Sweet. That was nice. Yeah, totally. Not the, what was it? The Sinatra play last one where he's just
yeah.
And part of it's intuition, right? Yeah,
100%.
It's just, I thought about some of those things, but at the end of the day, you just sometimes you
come to, and this is something that Yiska kind of really, I won't put words in his mouth, but I think you did a good job of explaining that intuition and that like whole brilliant mind anime stuff. You can come to those same conclusions, but the players do it like almost subconsciously.
Yeah.
They're not actively thinking about it, but they're coming to that conclusion because of all of the hours that they've put into it and actively thinking about that in VOD review and, you know, having the coaches talk to them about it and stuff like that.
If you think about it, pro players, it's one thing to have great hand-eye coordination and learn that. It's another thing to learn a game like Overwatch where there's so many like, you know, like if A then B or if not then C, that you cannot feasibly think about everything you're doing consciously. And the best players just are very good at like basically almost like having these sub programs just run in the background. And they just know what's happening without them having any particular knowledge of it. And then sometimes coaches need to course correct on these particular subroutines, if you want. But yeah, I think that's certainly sometimes you just know when stuff happens. I will also say there were parts in the NYXL London game where it was like very obvious that the Spitfire were a little too excited by I'm thinking about Junkertown, like second to last fight on defense where they were very close to holding them first point. It's like 1:30 on the clock and Spitfire is just like, oh, that's almost one fight territory. Well, not if you end the fight so quickly by over-investing 4 ultimates into NYXL when NYXL only needs 2 for that fight. And then the ultimate economy is completely flipped for the last fight that you didn't even think was possible. So there was definitely some veteran experience going on where it was like, okay, NYXL probably knows these kids, they're giddy, they're about to.
I don't know.
We're one up, we're one map up. We are about to hold them Junkertown first, so that's probably a 2-0. And they're mighty excited by being up in a big way in Ultimate Economy. So let's play it smart. We can get 2 attacks in here if they smash us quickly, and then just like clean up individually after that.
See, I feel like that's just a karmic response from Kings Row because New York did the same exact thing. You saw Who Are You? As London's cracking point A defense for New York, and they die and they're coming back to spawn. There is that decision of, okay, how did we lose that fight? Can we recontest feasibly? It sounds like just the way that people were positioning. If I had to kind of interpret all of that, the body language and how Who Are You engages here, it looks like he wants to. The call is to re-engage and recontest. So he's like by himself. I don't know who made the call, if it was just a solo individual call from him, but he goes on the point, he wastes snowball, Blizzard's out, like he dies, they can't recontest. And again, they almost are too excited. So I think it is probably too much excitement. It's, stage nerves. It's the first game of the season. It's bound to happen, but I don't know. This isn't the same, calculated, steely, ironclad, nerves of steel NYXL that we're used to. They've got some new players. They've got some rookies. They've got a new style that they're operating under. So I think you're going to see a whole lot more of that.
They got a new big boss.
And we can't, we can't just harp on London. I think New York is going to have a lot of those growing pains as well. We might actually see them drop a couple games. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, the rookie aspect is fairly contained to Who Are You, and it doesn't surprise me that he's the one spilling the spaghetti
100%
all over the floor, right? Like,
sure,
that's what French people spill, the spaghetti.
It's a rookie feeling though. It's a new feeling. It's this, we're trying to be more proactive, whereas in the past they have been the super hyper reactive. And I think that's going to be a growing pain. And that's kind of the rookie feeling. It's feeling out how the new coaching staff is going to work, feeling out this new style. I don't think I'll go out and say that I think that they will lose some games that we wouldn't expect them to, especially early because of that. I think that they're going to slip up. And we saw that against London. London took them pretty close.
Yeah, it was actually a way closer series on second viewing than I felt it was on first. Like I remember like writing up this piece, and at some point after the second map, I'm like, unfortunately, at this point, the series loses its competitiveness as London gets worse. And I'm just like watching this, and I'm like, that's actually entirely wrong. Like it's still very close here. Like there was maybe was it Horizon? Yeah, Horizon, right? Did they play Horizon? But there was one map that wasn't that close. Okay. But the other ones were all close.
Yeah. And
they were at times down to NYXL requiring Mono to like clutch the hell out with a shatter or something. And
I feel bad because this is a preview episode.
Yes, I was thinking this the entire time while we were.
This is a really good conversation, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to go back and talk about NYXL. And I feel bad cutting you off because I led you into the question. So, but I do want to preview a little bit.
Yes.
And for the people who was like, shut up, let me know what's going on this weekend. We are going to Philadelphia for the first Philly homestand. They're bringing back Golden Boy to MC there. So, getting that contractor big bucks, I hope. But before we, I think, talk about the specific matches, I think I want to frame the meta with you guys a little bit. And last week there was a pretty, I don't want to say a super specific meta, but we definitely saw May, Ana, Lucio, Ryan, Diva, McCree, Reaper. We saw, I would say, a lot of consistencies between most of the teams throughout the weekend. Sure. Do you expect the meta to shift at all this week, given the teams that are going to be playing? We're going to be seeing, Florida Mayhem, the Houston Outlaws, the Washington Justice, and Philadelphia Fusion. So any expected changes here, or do you think we're going to largely stay the same for now?
Do you have an opinion? Because I have one.
I think that week one was the impetus to show that we were kind of spot on the money with the styles. There are, styles that teams can play that might not necessarily be optimal, right? We see Vancouver running around playing a bunch of dive. Can every team pilot that dive that well? No. Should they? No. Will we see the meta change and swing immediately one way? I don't think so, but I think there's room for a team like Philadelphia. If Washington had the pieces, I think they could still run the Arisa Rhine. Houston might come out with some weird stuff. They've got a lot of flexible pieces. I think that would be interesting to see from them, because historically that's when they've had a bunch of success, is when they found that their own way to the top of the mountain. With the Jake Rat, haha, lol, whatever. I think Houston would be an interesting kind of case study, just to see, okay, where are your heads at? What actually are you doing with these pieces? Philadelphia, I think, can, at least with this roster, probably feasibly run any kind of style they want. But in terms of the meta overall, I don't see it swapping. I think week one, McCree was super good. And if teams weren't necessarily on board, then maybe we see a little bit more bump up in McCree play, maybe a little bit more Widow. But I think it won't be a super large deviation away from the heroes that you mentioned.
What do you think, Yiska?
I think
the great German mind.
The majority of teams there, so 3 of them, are NA scrimmers. And they are, of course, part of different bubbles because they're playing each other that week. And of course, bubbles are Venn diagrams more so than anything else, but there's still some separation going on. I think, and I'm not 100% on this, I'm just speculating really, but I think with Mayhem, they actually were in Korea for a fairly long time. I'm not sure how much that impacts them still, because the meta, like as late as like a 1.5 weeks ago, looked different, and then like May, Lucio, Ryan was already like pretty relevant, but I think the play share of those comps increased. But I think there's a possibility that Mayhem just like got that East meta with more Sombra, maybe. And that we'll see get the first taste. And I'm not 100% sure, by the way, how that worked with NYXL. I think NYXL actually, from what I heard, were back earlier than other full Korean teams. I think they scrimmed in NA earlier. I'm not 100% on this, but my speculation is if it's the case that Mayhem was later to come back, also because of visas and whatnot, then they might have a different meta interpretation. Now, I don't know which interpretation is better, but the only other thing that I heard was the translation that Gatamchun did on Akaros saying like, okay, I think Mayhem is pretty good, but I've heard like 2 people say they are not doing that well right now. And keep in mind, not doing well right now could mean I got that information 3 weeks ago, or I got that information the day before the matches, and that wildly difference in how teams are able to perform in this current iteration of the meta, where things flip very quickly, and you either can serve that particular thing or not. So I think not only will it be interesting to see how Mayhem generally stacks up in the Eastern region scrim meta, but how that particular interpretation, if it is indeed actually still different, matches up against what is being played largely.
So I think my big question with that whole Sombra, Asia meta bubble thing is, what exactly does that specific composition look like? I think either way, either bubble, if you want to, if we want to talk about the Western style or the Eastern style, I think the Eastern style of play, Florida can run very, very well. Bum God, aka BQB, solid Sombra. On the other hand, if you want to play this Western scrim bubble style, you've got Widow, you've got McCree, you've got Reaper, all 3 pair into side players' wheelhouse insanely well. So I think, just on the outset, I think that they have some core pieces that they can work with. Fate back on his Rhine. Either way, I think they could go and play a bunch of different styles. But my worry kind of stems from the lack of information we have about the Asia bubble and figuring out, okay, what's being run with the Sombra? Is it, more dive tanks? I can't imagine that it would be. Is it a Hanzo? We saw Nero post his kind of screen cap or tier list of the heroes. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but if I had to guess, I would imagine it's probably something similar, and they should be able to run it. But I think it comes down again to the coaching staff and not a ton of experience. Kuki ran with Runaway. That's good. That definitely helps, but it doesn't give me a ton of confidence, because look at how strong that roster was in comparison to your very low resume in terms of coaching. So it's hard to say.
I like the take. It'll be interesting, at least to say, but I don't know. No way to know until we actually see it.
Yeah, but I will say either way, I think Florida will do good. This meta early has favored them. I'm willing to give them some brownie points. This is not bottom 5 territory for them. This meta definitely favors them either way. Again, you can go Asia bubble. I think they have the pieces for it to work. They can go Western bubble. They have the pieces for it to work. Side player could look like a stud. Is going to be put on a bunch of different heroes that he feels very comfortable with. Jockey, I think, will just be kind of on maid duty, and I think he'll be fine. And yeah, I think this is a pretty good team. Like, I don't think they'll be This is not bottom 5 power ranking. That whole engine starts to rev up when the patches change and they're forced to play other stuff, and Sire player has to play something that isn't just in his flex picks.
Eric says killing Volamel's power rankings and Yiska's waistline.
Indeed.
Which you didn't mention before. So before we talk about the matches, Yiska, you and Maid have made a little wager on the backs of the previously abysmal Florida Mayhem.
Yeah. So this year's is a bit special for me. I've like a lot of people are just like turning 30, turning 60, having huge parties.
I turned 30.
And then
I made your year special. Thank you.
Yes.
It's really nice of you. Thank you.
Oh, you actually did?
Yeah. It was my 30th.
Oh. See, if I had known that, I would have approached you very differently, because you also know part of the living dead. You will know. You will know. You will know. You know, when you get those pains that you used to get, and then you think, oh yeah, tomorrow it's gone. My cup rejuvenates this quickly. Nah, bro, this is now for the next 30 years at least, until all nerves die, and then you're good again. Right?
Jesus. All right. That's a sobering thought. Anyways, your wager.
So, in order to keep those nerves firing a little longer, Maid and I thought about racing the Mayhem. So basically what that entails, like way back when I was also like a bit of a round boy, and I did jogging for blogging, where on the site I was writing on, people could upvote, and for every 10 upvotes, I ended up running a kilometer. Of course, I got like, I think 190 upvotes, and I had to run 19 kilometers, which is like 10 miles. And I jogged them, and it was terrible. I was like way overweight. And then, okay, anyway, so to sort of give me something to hold on to again, we are racing the Mayhem, meaning that for every win the Florida Mayhem gets in the 2020 season, Maid and I have to lose a kilogram, which is like 2.2 pounds of weight. And tomorrow I'll post a weigh-in and then update on the progress in.
I will
like,
make you guys graphics.
Nice.
I will make graphics for this. I'm excited about this now. We're gonna do it.
Also, others, of course, are invited to also race the Mayhem. If you want to lose some weight, you don't have to do a kilogram. Like, depending on how good you think the Mayhem will be, it's a race, but it's also, like, especially for the smaller people, like a kilogram is not much for me. If you're 70 kilograms and you're like, okay, I want to get to 60, don't get anorexic on us, please. Like,
so what happens if you don't meet your goal? What happens if you weigh in 1 week and you were 0.2 pounds short?
Oh, it's about the end of the season. So whoever so at the end of the season we tally up, and if the Florida Mayhem has more wins than I have lost kilograms.
Okay.
I guess we can talk about a wager. I'm not sure. That would be interesting. I haven't thought about anything, but they certainly have then won.
Yes, of course.
So we'll see.
Anybody under the threshold has to buy Mayhem merch.
Ooh.
Post some social media. Do a video.
You know what? I'm actually. I'll talk to Thibbledog about this. Let's see. He'll make it a big.
Oh God,
that'd be great. I think that'd be hilarious. Well, best of luck for you. I hope Maid wins, and yeah, I would rather see you, the loser, have to do an episode. We'll bring Maid on an episode of Tactical Crouch, and the loser has to dress up and drag.
Of course, if the man actually turns out to do a perfect season, I'll probably just have to amputate my leg to make it close.
Cuts it off. just comes. Oh man! All right. let's talk about the matches coming up this week. Match number 1. The Florida Mayhem versus the Houston Outlaws. Our odds aggregator has them at 58% in favor of the Florida Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Yiska, Joe, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for in this match.
I want to see Saya player not be an ogre.
What does that mean?
I need him to. He has this almost like biblical hope around him for the Mayhem that he is going to be the golden child this season. If you know that's the big selling point. Every time I decry the Mayhem, it's like, well, have you seen Saya player on McCree and Widow? I have, yes, I have. He also doesn't position fantastically sometimes, right? He has a tendency to kind of off step. But he can make up for that with stellar mechanics. I have to give him credit where credit's due, right?
Okay.
And if he's going to be put in a meta where he's allowed to do these things and allowed to kind of make these hero plays,
yes,
that's going to seal the deal for them.
Yeah.
If not, if this is the meta where they still can't get wins, I stand by exactly everything I said previously. They should be able to do well. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at Saya player. I'm looking at Fate.
I think. Well, the thing is, okay, let's assume there is no a different meta and they're just playing like what everyone's playing because that's like the dominant thing now.
Yes.
I think Houston would do well to not run that gentleman's agreement. I think on most days of the week, Linksa gets banged out by side play on both McCree and Widow. I don't care about the Widow stats from season 1. And I wouldn't bet on him being a consistent performer. Now, I wonder if, like in my mind, he should be the starter, I suppose, on those heroes, with the rest of the hero pool then falling onto Dante. I think, like, if I was to divvy up how I would want my players to play these different roles, then I'll say, okay, Linksa, your McCree zone and your Widow zone.
Reaper and Widow, yeah.
And then Dante does everything else. Like,
really? You think?
Yeah. I think Dante and Blase on
yes.
Those,
that's who I think.
Like, picks outside of those is actually a nuts DPS though.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're actually really good. I think Blase is actually probably not given the credit, but how could he after a season like that?
Yeah, you can't.
So we'll see about that. And then I'll of course also look towards Yaki. And
of course,
the thing is, if Yaki actually then is on maid duty, I don't know how disciplined he is in his playstyle. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much of a speed chess master he is with his walls and everything. Like, he stands out to me more as a mechanical player than anything else.
Yes. When have we seen Yaki do well? We go back to MVP. We look at Asfara. Asfara was actually really, really, really good. Yeah. Look at his Tracer. You know, these are carry heroes. Putting him on a more supportive hero like May, does he have that same flair? I don't know. That's what we're gonna have to see.
Yeah. So I like, if we want to talk about percentages here, and we still haven't talked about the tank lines, which is certainly interesting for the Outlaws, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I also don't know what kind of tanks they're running. I don't know if they're like, I would just think Meko is set. Certainly, and then like it's probably just like Muma at this point, then, right?
I think it has to be. I mean, you don't really expect Spree to play too much unless they're flexing.
No, the main
tanks, right?
As Flame said, like hydration, right, on tank.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we could see that. Maybe they have curveballs. I don't know. Backline. Yeah, I think Repel, this is the season where he has to show us that maybe he isn't a super elite player, but he's like in that Shaz tier. You know? Like a solid 1.5, so to speak. Like tier 1.5 player. And if that comes together, that's interesting. In terms of the Mayhem, yeah, like tank line, question mark still for me. Backline, one not really a question mark. I think most rookies arrived fairly well so far, so I'm not worrying about Gangnam Jin at all. Mm-hmm. I'm worrying about Chris, and
which isn't anything new on this podcast. Yeah,
sure, yeah, and we've also seen the difference that a mechanical Lucio can make at the moment. So this concerns me a little. But yeah, maybe the rules by which we're judging them are completely overthrown by them running a different meta, and then
100%.
Interesting,
right? That's the early week predictions. That's the early week previews. You know, early season previews are going to be tough because there are bubbles. Like we have to kind of make that very understood that we are operating on so much incomplete information. So from what we do see, from what we are hearing, this is kind of the projections on how these teams could go. There's another half of the world that hasn't even played a match yet, that could have a wildly different view on how things are played. And it sounds like there are certain picks that are just like completely viable, whereas the West thinks they're not. So we could see that from the Mayhem. We could see Houston pull out, hydration on ball. They play dive. Nobody expects it. That's something that they could do. That's not something that I could feasibly say, hey, put your money on the fact that Houston's going to run out and play ball Somber Genji.
Yeah.
They could.
I'll also say, historically, I don't think much meta innovation that then actually ended up entrenching came from Korea. I remember them as being especially late to goats.
Yes.
And
they weren't great at goats when they first picked it up. They were pretty bad.
Weren't they running like Winston stuff with it as well?
Yeah, they ran a lot of Winston goats. They charged on cooldown. A lot of the main tanks were really, really poor. I remember charging halfway across Horizon Lunar Colonies, kind of courtyard area. It wasn't great. It was pretty rough. But what they do is they take it and they refine it and they grind at it and they polish it. That's what Korea's always been good at. You look at StarCraft, you look at League of Legends. They want to play that super passive, refined, chess game instead of, just rolling up the sleeve and just brawling out.
The best style.
I mean, EU's doing pretty good in League. I don't know, man. Korea looks like pretty poop.
Sure. It's just more that EU doesn't deserve it for being cheesy.
I don't think they're being cheesy. I just think Korea is just completely rolling over. But that's neither here nor there. Korea, in most games, wants to refine. If they're going to take losses, it's always going to be at the start of the season. It's going to be early in a bracket where people could cheese them. Houston can be that cheesy team.
Sure. I do want to say there is one concern about Jexa. And that's that he just arrived in the United States a couple days ago. We don't know how quickly he's going to be integrated. And even the people I asked, they're 50-50. Like I've heard 50, like, of course Jexa's going to play. It's Jexa. There are people who are like, I don't know, man. I'd work on who I had in the building at the time. So we'll see what comes from there, but that is a notable asterisk, I think, a lot to the results on this. So it sounds to me that both of you are leaning Mayhem here over Outlaws.
Yep.
With the caveat that Houston could out-innovate Mayhem. That would give them the best chance to win.
That's exactly how I have it going. I have this going 3-2 Mayhem. Yes, haha, bottom 5 team. Houston, not bottom 5. Power rankings, meme. I think Florida has the pieces to do well in either of these scrim bubbles. And that's not to say that the Houston Outlaws don't. but I think they're going to come out, do a lot of funky stuff, catch Mayhem look really close. But at the end of the day, you go to game 5 on control. Florida takes that. 3-2 Florida.
3-2 Florida. Yiska, where are you sitting here?
Well, just almost choking on a gummy.
These must be matched in your high noon pick'ems, by the way.
I was
Yes,
like,
yes.
Okay, so I think this will be rather close. Of course, closeness to display that in match scores is hard. You can say 3-2, but that might not be the most likely outcome. It might very well be that the high percentages are 3-1 for either team, right? So in that regard, I say 55 Mayhem, but I say 3-1 Mayhem.
That's fair.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got Mayhem a little. Oh my gosh, I just blew up my face. I've got Mayhem winning this one as well. I've got them about 60-40. I don't, and mainly around, I think, just Jexa. This is also the one that if I were gonna pick a sleeper pick, this is the one I think for the week that I think would surprise the most.
Yeah, I think on paper going into this, like if we were just going preseason and if we had to put these rosters against one another, I do like Houston for the length of the season. And that's my worry about Florida, as I mentioned previously. How is this team going to adapt? I can pretty much guarantee you Houston's probably going to be pretty consistent. Hopefully, as long as my projections are fair. I think Houston is going to be consistent. They can play in a bunch of different metas. I'm not so sure about Florida. That's the team that hasn't really done much of anything in 2 seasons. Now, that can be applied to Outlaws in a realm, right? Like they haven't been good, but they've at least tried to do different things. Mayhem has tried and failed to do a bunch of really dumb things. You know, swapping the roster mid-season, playing a bunch of like
the Outlaws have tried to, because they didn't make any changes last year.
Well, they didn't make any. They certainly couldn't make changes, right? So we have to give them that.
You're
caveat.
talking more like strategically, organizationally.
Strategic. I kind of have to give them a pass. Last season, right? Like
because I don't disagree with you, but I also just don't want the YouTube comments to go like, "Well, they didn't get any new players, didn't do any big changes, blah blah blah." What do you mean? So I guess I would say more elaborate on that for me. What you mean by that?
100%. I like Houston over the season. I think of this roster much like we could have thought of the 2018 Houston at the end of the season. Could be very innovative. They can find their own style. They can also, feasibly play a very standard style to a pretty high degree. I don't think, I don't know if I'd even go as far as to say that, Linkster's going to be as bad as Yiska, is hinting at, especially against Saya player. There's a solid team around the Houston Outlaws. Florida, there are some pieces that just are glaring holes. Houston, not so much anymore, depending on who's played, obviously. I like Houston over the season. We'll have to see about Florida, but with the meta that we have right now and the information that we have, I like Florida a little bit more.
Fair enough. Let's go on to match number 2. Washington Justice versus the Philadelphia Fusion. Odds have them 65 Fusion, 35 Washington Justice. We do know now the Washington Justice are going to be missing Lulsish on the opening weekend.
I don't think that really makes any differences. Yeah.
But besides that, give me your thoughts here, Yiska. Like, what are you thinking going into this match? I think I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that nobody's picking the Washington Justice to win this.
No.
I mean, apparently, okay, so we're talking about Philly, right? Not the, because I'm confused by the faces over the Outlaws thing on stream.
Oh, we're talking. Sorry, these are, we're talking about Justice versus Fusion.
Fusion, okay.
And production.
No, I don't anticipate them winning that. The thing is, we saw how much impact a great DPS can have in DK, and we saw like that it also works to an extent with XCI, and we see that there is something in this meta that allows for individuals on the hitscan role to pop. The problem is that there are two players that are probably Corey tier as well. I expect Carpe to on these heroes to be comparable, if not better. And I don't think Hisu is much more I guess you would have to say that Hisu is would probably get eaten by Corey most of the time, but whatever. So that win condition is gone. I don't think they will have superior strategies. I think they're the types of strategies they have access to and could refine based on the size of the roster is limited. The scrimbugs certainly aren't in their favor. That said, Fusion also like not rated as the hyper like super team that I conceptualize them as in terms of like what the names are in this scene. Maybe that will change over the season, but here it's unlikely to matter. I would go as high as AT Fusion. And that's pretty ridiculous considering we have nothing to go on other than what we heard. And it's the first season game. So there should be a lot of volatility towards like not as high percentages. But yeah, AT Fusion.
It's a little bit high, but in general, I tend to agree. If Philly, if they're not going to come out and be the super team that can, carry from every role, like I think they can, then Washington has to do a lot strategically, a lot of planning to kind of beat that brute force, right? We're early in the season where that can't feasibly happen. If this was mid-season, if this was later on the season, I'd be willing to give Justice a second look here. But I really struggle to see a world where Philly, even if it is just messy and it just becomes a brawl, which team brawls better? I have to give that to Philly. Look at that roster. It's disgusting. Washington, on the other hand, yes, Stratus gets to play as May. Sure. Corey gets to play a lot of hitscan, 100%. They don't have Volshish. I don't necessarily think that matters. At least it didn't for me because I assumed Roar was going to see play anyways, especially early. And then they go to the Swedish duo. Hopefully they're Swedish. God, I shouldn't even brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay, they are.
Yeah.
Whew. Beautiful. I think they go to that later, but I think immediately Roar probably sees a little bit of play, even if he was in the States. That's where I kind of have it projected.
Yeah.
Two, but really doesn't do anything for me. Arc, not necessarily a brawly support. Aim God, statistically, he was great on Boston, but we've also heard stirrings that maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was a little bit of a Jeffrey. You know what I'm saying? I don't. You can infer from that what you want, but maybe he was being a little bit of a Jeff. You compare that to Philly. I think Philly has the star power. I think they have the brute force. I think they have the firepower at every role. They can brawl with the best of them, and yeah. I think even if this goes belly up, Fusion can take it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where, like, again, I don't think... I think this is about as good a meta as Washington could have asked for, at least for their DPS.
Absolutely.
And tank lines. But I just don't think that there's enough there. Like, Corey would really have to carry, would have to put on, kind of like an XE level carry.
And the fact that
Paris.
you're like, that's a very like understood point. You don't think Philly has that in their playbook?
And that's the thing, right? So
you know what I'm saying?
Right. So you're double betting against yourself. You're betting that Corey is able to pop off and that Carpe, season 1 MVP candidate, is washed. Like, I don't...
I guess.
So I don't know. Like, I think Carpe would go a long way. I think Ikio's May's fine, right? So probably even works a little bit better to their like aggressive play style that they want to run.
Yeah.
Sato, again,
We'll see.
I guess we'll see, right? But this Rhine
he's got to int like real hard. Like if he comes out and plays like J-Mac, okay.
Rhine is one of his weaker main tanks. Let's be real.
It is.
He'll probably get to play some of the Winston.
Maybe. They could. Like Philly could be a team that could run dive. Like they have the pieces too. Will they? That's something we're gonna have to see. Not something I'd put money on, but there's an opportunity.
It would require. I would say if Philadelphia played at like a very median level, nobody pops off, nobody significantly underperforms. I put it still 55 in favor of Philly. But if and that's assuming that so nobody pops off on Philly, they stay kind of very consistent, and you see Corey have go ahead and carry. I still give it 55 Philly.
Yeah.
Assuming that
that's like the best justice,
and that's a best case scenario, right?
Yep.
So a lot has to go wrong for Philadelphia Fusion. And I don't think that this is the game to do it. Keep in mind, they're also in Philadelphia. Yiska loves the seventh man
boys.
comment. That can work a for and against, if we're being honest.
Definitely.
But I look at this team, and I feel like it's a team that's going to have it go for. So
I want to kind of double down on that point where you can positively tilt. Like the pressure to succeed and to like, how do I put this? I wrote something pretty early season 2 about like how the Dragons are like positively tilting. Like everybody wants them to win so bad that it now becomes more of a pressure that instead of just like being terrible and losing, the excitement for them to get their first win is tilting them even harder. It's adding so much more pressure. So to your point, playing at home, if you don't have that kind of emotion in check, you want to go for those hero plays. You want to, pop off. You want to show the crowd why this team is exciting to come and watch. That's tilt. In my mind, that is tilting. It essentially tilting being making emotional decisions, right? In a very general way of defining it.
Sure.
And that can, reverse tilt you almost. When we think of tilt, we think of like, oh, I'm mad at my teammates. Oh, you, this, that, the other thing. Oh, I'm sad, oh, I didn't make that shot, so I'm going to cower and not re-peak. I think if you're playing at home and you're this really aggressive style, yeah, I think there's room for Philly to maybe try to pop off, try to make those stream plays.
John, isn't it a little scary how good he gets at like peppering in these F-bomb beeps? Like now it's just second nature.
It's second nature. You need to get better at it.
It's like he probably sits at the kitchen table and it's like to his assistant, like, did you actually like eat all the Nutella? Nutella again?
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah. He's getting good at it, man. He gets it. But yeah, I think so. I do have one sleeper pick here, and I think that if Fusion go up 2-0. I think that we will see. I think we'll see Chips on Horizon Lunar.
Oh no! Please.
I'm gonna say it right now.
Don't say that.
I'm gonna say it right now.
I'll be so sad.
I'm gonna say it right now.
If they're okay, so what map? Do we know what maps they're playing?
We don't. But if they play
if it's Horizon and you could maybe play Doom,
and they're up 2-0.
See, that's where I go. Okay. Maybe ZP's argument had merit. Maybe this coaching staff is memeing. Like, I don't know, man. Like, you can't do that to me.
I don't know, man. I think
it'd be a different story if we were doing 4-game sets and they had already won the game. And then game 4, yeah, throw them in. Don't care. You already won. Doesn't really matter. You could easily throw a series by chucking Chips in.
What better situation than your team's first game at your own homestand? You go up the first 2 games, you're like, we're going with Chipsa. We're bringing him in. I think they can, and I think they do.
Mm.
That's how great moments are made.
If they do that, there's a chance they lose. I'll say that.
Shut up.
If Chipsa ever sees playtime this match, Justice could win. Yep. I'll say that.
All right. We'll see. I'm going to sound clip that as soon as it went. So when it happens, I'm going to play it on repeat with just a bunch of Chipsa carry plays. I'm going to do that. And you have to retweet it and pin it to your channel or to your
can't
Twitter.
pin it, but I'll retweet it.
Pin it to your Twitter.
No.
For a week.
No.
3 days.
I'll retweet it.
3
I'll
days.
retweet it.
All right. Wow. He's really.
I would much rather see Hisu come out in those situations than.
He's not even
or
a
Ivy.
major. Yeah. I think those would be.
Okay.
Let me check.
Remember, you guys are missing the point of the big game.
Late March.
The game is not winning
Okay,
Overwatch. We're playing the big game here. Selling tickets, selling merch, getting people hyped, wanting to come to the stadium.
Yeah.
That's a risk worth taking. It's a risk worth taking. Yeah, he's underage, by the way, guys.
Yeah, he's not going to be of age until
he's not playing
late next month. Ivy,
So-
I like Ivy. Chipsa, if they come out and they lose this game and I think in their minds they should not be losing, and Chipsa comes out and, plays his map and, momentum shifts and Washington starts to come back and they lose, we could have a season 2 all over again. They spent a lot of money for this roster. If I had to guess, this roster was not cheap. So I don't think it's necessarily as simple as let's just sell tickets, but if you start off on a bad foot, this team's going downhill fast.
I think it's a much smaller risk than you make it out to be if they go up 2-0 and assuming that they're relatively decisive.
Sure, yeah. If they're just stomps and it's not even close, okay, fine, whatever. But if these are even relatively competitive,
quit backpedaling, man.
These aren't backpedaling.
You stated it. All right, so you say no. Let's go to match 3. Washington Justice versus Houston Outlaws. This one is actually it's favored 59-41 in favor of the Justice here.
Yeah, don't know about that.
Your boy's about to make some money.
Don't know about that one.
Just like Valiant Fuel last week. This is this week's Valiant Fuel.
Yeah.
I think we'll know a little bit more based on how well they play against Philly.
Totally.
But
sure.
I don't, man, if it does go in Justice's, if it does go Justice's way, I think it's much closer to like a 55-45 or a 53-47 if we're getting really, really, really close there. I don't think that Houston actually loses to Justice here at all.
No. But yeah, like you said, I think we'll have a much better picture of that match on Saturday. To kind of echo similar points, I think Washington is kind of just would you say a worse Florida? I think
Houston
I'd go
is a
out and
worse
say
Florida.
No, Washington is a worse Florida. So if we're going to say that Houston can draw Florida close and Washington is a worse Florida.
Ooh, the attrition analysis.
Wait, in what sense a worse Florida?
So they have a weaker main tank.
Mm-hmm.
Their star hit scan hasn't hit. It has one hero that's similar to a Sayo player, but other than that, I don't know if I necessarily give him flexibility there. But I think Widow, it's very, very good. Have we seen his McCree?
Yeah.
Have we? Was it as stellar as you think it needs to be? Is it as good?
Hold up, let me pull it up in Stats Lab.
Do you think it's comparable to Sayo player though?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's where we differ.
Maybe.
I think it's just those two picks. Yeah. I think generally.
Whoa. We can't ignore flex support either.
Oh, okay. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sure.
This is a worse Florida. Justice is a worse Florida, I think, across the board. I can't. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give him main support. Sure. I mean, Chris, that's a go-to.
Yeah.
Flex tank, gargoyle. There's really not too much difference there. I think Florida is the better team. And if Houston's going to take Florida close, I think they can easily dispatch Justice.
Yeah. We'll see.
Again, that's going off a whole lot of first principles that are kind of just very loose projections at this point. So maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe Florida is completely poop and Washington's great. But the way that I see it,
I think
Justice is a worse Florida.
I think that the Houston, I think a lot of it depends on the looks that we get from Houston on day one.
Sure.
And how good they look in doing that. Like Jexa. Do we see Jexa? Does Jexa look good, or do they look really rusty and awkward? I think that there's. I'm still trying to parse out how the DPS is going to work out. Right, because they don't really have technically somebody who's played a ton of May that I know of and have seen in the past. So, but I'm ignorant. So, who knows? I'm sure Dream will correct me, or he might not. It's just you never know with Dream. Yeah. So I don't know. I think in the end, Houston should win this match. Period.
Yeah.
I think there's room for like a slow map where, maybe a control, even though we went through those numbers, but I think control can be pretty messy, even for Houston. Maybe Washington sneaks the map, but I think all in all, this should be pretty concise for a Houston win.
Yeah, I'd like 70%. 70%, 65% is also fine. And then I would feel a lot more confident if I actually knew the maps. But yeah, 3-1 doesn't sound wrong.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd go to like Yiska's previous point and say like, oh, it could be close. The map score doesn't necessarily project how close it was. I don't know that this will be all that close. I think some maps will be competitive where you'll see Justice, might clutch a fight, Corey pops off, maybe Stratus makes a play, But I think all in all, most fights go Houston's way. Most maps go Houston's way, barring, any kind of kerfufflery.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's go through the last one here. We're coming up on our time, and that's going to be the Philadelphia Fusion versus the Florida Mayhem.
This could be good. I think this might actually be a pretty okay match, depending on how Saturday goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This one is 63-37, by the way. The second highest favored match by the odds themselves in favor of Philadelphia Fusion.
I mean, that in itself is a problem, but I don't think the odds are particularly wrong here.
Like if you were gonna, I think, give either three of us odds, I think we would all probably say Philly and about 70-30, if even the most bearish, 60-40, maybe if you're just super high on Florida. It'd be tough, especially going into the weekend. I think it all kind of depends on what Saturday looks like. Things could change. Going into the weekend, I think Philly should take this fairly convincingly, as long as this roster already hasn't imploded.
Yeah, a lot of this is like on paper, we all agree.
Yeah.
And none of us lack the confidence enough to switch. It's like
last week I was like, okay, maybe Gladiators could pull off some weird stuff. They didn't. Okay, they lost. I misread there. That's fine. This week I don't see like a big upset. Like there might be an upset in the odds with Washington, Houston, but I don't think that's an upset. I think they're just off there. I think again, this is an interesting week, but I don't think it's going to be
I think
like
these
super
games are
one
going
way
to
or
be
the
fun
other.
to watch.
Oh yeah, totally.
And these are also teams that, especially outside of Philadelphia, who I think obviously has, top 5 aspirations here. The rest of these teams are all play-in jockeying teams, right? They're all teams that are playing for that 9 to 12 spot, I would say.
I hope Philly wouldn't be shooting from 9 to 12, but
well, that's what I said. Philly
could fall
is
there.
jockeying for. That's why I said Philly is jockeying for top 5. But these other 3 teams are teams that, on paper at least, appear to be very close, or at least aspirationally very close. And so this is going to be a great way for us to kind of recalibrate kind of some of that middle table ambiguity that we talked about so much in our power rankings of, ranks 10 to 17, it feels like, is honestly 8 to 17. There's so many different there's so many different variables that it's a little bit hard to rightfully do so. You have some people who are super super bullish on like the Washington Justice. I don't know why. I'm really excited to see why they're bullish on Justice this weekend, because if they're not, I've already got the claim. I have the claim chowder folder on my desktop of just all the takes. And
not to interrupt, but I think a lot of people have fond memories of Stage 4 for Justice, and if you go back and look at their match history, let's go back for a second. Stage 4 Justice, not the strongest opponents, right? Not the strongest. Week 1 Toronto's late 2019, not a great team, right? Then we've got a team like Florida 2019, not great. And you've got Vancouver. They pop off against Vancouver. You got to give them credit where credit's due. The rest of those matches, Houston 3-2. That's a weird one. Why did they go so close? That's pretty bizarre. They beat Paris, but they drop a map. They don't beat Atlanta, but there again, you kind of assume Atlanta's probably going to do really well, especially late into that season. Not the most telling opponents, especially when he looks good. I think people look at those flashy plays, they get super excited. People look at World Cup, they go, Corey.
That was going to be my point, is that people cheer for teams, but they rally around players, if that makes sense. And Corey and Stratus particularly decided to, whether, they did some marketing mojo there or whatever, but in that Stage 4, when they hit a stride, and again, kind of an expected one, you expected them to win most of those games, and even if they lost against the Titans, I think that they still would have had the same reaction to their performance, because Corey was really exciting to watch. Stratus played really well. You saw a team that was floundering starting to win, and if you can position that right, it looks really great. And if you've got a team you want to cheer for, and we all know how fans are with confirmation bias, if you have a team you want to cheer for and you are given any sort of reason to cheer for them, you will, and you'll justify that to the ends of the earth. Unless you're Joe and Yiska and have to analyze for them as well, in which case, maybe not. But,
it's just control, guys. Come on. Just control.
Tell you what, though. This will start my molding process of seeing the little gold star badge on Corey for one stage.
Okay, that one you can't be too mad at that one. It was an entire focus meta. Come on, you gotta it.
So what?
Who else are you gonna give it to? I think there was a ton of discussion there.
Rascal.
It depends on how you value DPS in a non-DPS meta. Is it who did more damage? Is it a role that historically has been doing a bunch of damage? I think that one I feel less bad on this season. Hopefully that gets shaped up with role lock, but yeah, I don't feel as bad as I don't mulled as much as I do with other picks.
Dream.
Get out. Like that's okay. So the only thing. Okay, so for the viewers, he says, imagine being mad about overrated DPS and then advocating for Rascal. Could not be me. So the one thing is, nobody rates Rascal. Shut the fuck up. Nobody rates Rascal.
Not anymore.
Sorry. See, I'm bad. Joe's already like...
I've got the tick, yeah.
And then, like, I guess you could argue, like, he didn't play DPS for even longer than other DPS players because of his... Or even more so, you know, it's hard to say in like because of the Brigitte like allocation, but like still over the entire season, the flexibility that he's shown, like I don't know, like at some point, are you just going to say like the 3/4 of the season weren't applicable to any DPS players, and we're only judging them by the last half? Like even Ding would then have more of a say. No, that's not true because they weren't that good in stage 4. But anyone that played a decent chunk of DPS, like Jinmu, for instance, like has a longer period of time playing it at a very high level.
Sure.
And this reeks of recency bias.
It definitely does, but I think it's fair to kind of throw your hands up and say, okay, nobody really played DPS. This is a tough one to go on. Do you give it to the people who actually have been playing DPS, like a Jinmu, like a Bacon Jack, like Chengdu, or do you give it to people who are playing a role that they wouldn't normally play but are still doing super well, and they kind of fill a role in the 3/3 meta that does a lot of damage, like?
And then when they came back to DPS, they did well.
Right, like it's. I don't hate it as much. Like, yes, it's very recency bias. It's about flashy plays. You know, stage 4 they did well. Like, oh look, you know, they could have done good. I don't hate it as much. Like, I definitely don't.
Yiska, I get where you're coming from.
Totally.
It's also, he wasn't just an average Zarya.
He was bad.
And
he's bad.
He was a bad Zarya.
He wasn't great. Yeah. I think this season, I think it'll be much better. Hopefully, we won't have to mulled so much. But again, is either here nor there.
I don't know. Do you guys know what the selection committee was for Roll Stars? Was it just Owl Talent, or did they do media too?
No, they did media. Yeah, they did.
Joe got one of those votes, and we know what happens when Joe votes.
Gooshway goes to Roll Star. Got it.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note,
my votes are all public. You can criticize them. That's fine. I made my points.
Joe votes, and the Archman wins.
It's not true. Bernie 2020.
All right. Well, there's your preview for the week. We all agree across the board.
Yeah.
So we're saying Mayhem over Outlaws, Fusion over Justice, Outlaws over Justice, and Fusion over Mayhem. Everybody agrees. Everybody's in agreement.
Yes.
Yep. I think we talked about our sleeper picks throughout. Really excited to see the new players, the new teams.
Mm-hmm. Very excited.
We'll have seen 14 then of the 20 teams, I believe, after this week. We saw 10 last week. Is that correct?
I'm going to trust that that's right. I'm not even going to. I'm just going to trust it. Gotta trust it.
I'm so sad that we didn't have a Chinese homestand.
Yeah.
We could be sitting here. I could be like curb stomping Joe's arguments. Guys, Chengdu blows. They blow, dude. They blow.
Jesus.
Hell yeah.
All right. We're getting out of here. Thank you all so much. A big thank you to our patron producers. Battle Crab Made, Pin Lulshin, Charlie L, and Audio Compass. as well as a big thank you to Keith R. and Sarah for new patrons. So if you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch and you can support right there. Also, sub right here, twitch.tv/KickedTripod, and you get some cool Tactical Crouch emotes, like the one Mr. Kaku is putting in the chat right now with the Yiska. With his, we might need to change that to Yiscat, huh? Yiscat sleeper. Yeah, I think so. Either way, big thank you to everybody again. Yiska, are we doing the little watch party again in the Discord?
Yes.
Cool. So
I'll have a little addition to those, because people said that they liked to have some sort of rating, and I'm still working on a beta process. But for now, what we're doing is we're all going to watch the games in voice. Then after the match, I'll put out a poll so we can all rate our enjoyment of that match. I'll aggregate them and put them in a content piece later on.
Cool. We'll be hanging out there. I hung out quite a bit this past weekend. Joe was there almost the whole time too. So that should be a ton of fun. That's discord.me/Yiska out is where we are. Even though you changed the little icon this past week to the Tactical Crouch logo. So
yeah, because mate, during the thingies, like I forbade him to kick people, so he like changed it to stupid stuff, and I don't remember what he called the server, but it was outrageous. And then I realized I didn't have the little emblem that Joe made me for way back when for the owl pellets. I didn't have it handy, and I didn't want that. It was like some player, I don't know which player it was. It looked very Ahegao face. I had to get rid of it, and I chose the TCP logo.
Fair enough. All right. So we're your fourth choice. Got it. Thanks a ton. Other than that,
Always.
Anything else going on this week for either of you guys? Any new articles coming out?
Yep.
I think I've got one coming out, or it might already be out, about the Gladiators, and answering the question, was it a coaching mistake to not play more of OGE? TLDR, I don't think so. I think it's an investment into the future. I think it's more macro strategy. At least that's what I think. And then today, probably going to be writing something about Fusion. That'll be out later in the week.
Cool. Yiska, what about you?
Yeah, certainly planning some stuff. Like, expect our preview piece on GG Recon. Later in the week, probably again on Friday, and I'll definitely have something up tomorrow. Maybe we'll get some satire again. I feel like that's coming on.
Feeling a little spicy?
I don't have an idea yet, but I just feel like writing something light and something that is easy to write.
Cool. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod. I am streaming some like VOD review stuff. I said I just want to get better at VOD reviews, and part of me doing that is like vocalizing my thought process. And like, well, I just might as well stream it. So I've been doing that. We've been having 25 to 35 viewers each time we've been doing that. That's been a lot of fun. So a big thank you to everybody who's been hanging out for that one. Other than that, though, big thank you to everybody again for hanging out. We'll see you Monday with the week 2 recap. See what happened over the weekend. Enjoy the matches. Enjoy a light Overwatch weekend comparatively. You only got 4 matches to watch. Take your time.
Yeah.
Grab ice cold cherry Kool-Aid.
Come on, Kool-Aid. Toss that money this way.
Right?
The boys are hungry.
Right?
You're just giving out free advertisement here. That's not how it works.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Crack
Kool-Aid.
open one of those nondescript cherry beverages.
There you go. Anyways, don't watch, if you're going to miss any matches this week, miss the Outlaws matches.
No, watch them twice.
Watch them twice. There
No
you
ad.
go. Wait for the VODs to come out on Tuesday. Just kidding. Definitely go watch the Outlaws matches. Dream, good luck to you, sir. Hope you do well this week. We're cheering for you, even if our analysis doesn't always say so. And other than that, we're out of here, guys. We'll see you next Monday. Bye.
Bye.
Shoop